Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with Dwain Chambers. Dwayne is one of Britain's most accomplished sprinters, known for his incredible speed and resilience throughout his career. He made a significant mark on the world stage, representing Great Britain in numerous international competitions, including the Olympics and the World Championships. Though his career faced controversy due to a doping ban in the early 2000s, Dwayne made a powerful comeback, advocating for clean sport and serving as an example of redemption and perseverance. His journey from elite athlete to an outspoken advocate for anti-doping measures continues to inspire both athletes and the public. I'm really looking forward to talking with Dwayne, so let's get into it. Dwayne, thank you for joining me.
Absolute pleasure.
Tell me, who is Dwayne Chambers?
It's taken me 46 years to answer that question. So I've just given my age away there. But
Yeah, I'm 47.
Oh, mate, just
2 weeks ago. When's your birthday?
I'm April 5th.
Wow, I'm September 20th.
Look at that.
Same
That's why we
age.
get on, see?
Yeah, 100%.
That's why we get
Well,
on.
it's just, we've seen the same stuff through the life journey we've been on, right?
We have. We've seen a lot, but we've seen things through different lenses,
Of course.
you know? But back to your question, who am I? Who is Dwayne Chambers? I'm a father. I recently would call myself an athlete, but I'm more than just that, because that's what made me, that's what I identified myself as. But I've also realised I'm just more than that, and I want to be more than just that. Because when people identify me as just an athlete, they remember the things I did in the past as an athlete. However, I've moved on from then. I enjoy the roles and responsibilities I have now as a coach, as a dad. That's still a learning curve for me in so many ways.
How old?
19, 16, see, I've got to think, and 13.
So I'm 13 and 14.
Okay, so you're going through it too.
Yeah, 2 teenage girls.
Yeah, I've got 2 boys.
Okay, girls easier than boys?
They're all get on my nerves. Just let's face it, they all get on my nerves, but I'm sure I get on their nerves too. And but I enjoy it, and I do the things with them that I wish my parents did with me. I just
That's
spend
interesting,
more
because
time.
some people say you become your dad, you become your mum.
100%.
Whereas others will do the things that they see things that didn't work.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that. This is how I'm going to be.
100%. So
You got that?
I enjoy my time with them and
Yeah.
do crazy stuff just because I didn't do it. So I effectively lived my childhood through them.
Love that. You look super content without any arrogance at all. And you actually kind of almost described yourself in that first sort of few minutes of me talking to you. How have you found contentment? Because you've been through a lot, highs and lows. But right now you just seem calm. You seem, again, content.
Content has been something I've had to work on for a while. And I still face challenges day to day. Kids coming home from school with stuff. And as a parent, you've got to keep your cool. But equally, I'm dealing with challenges outside of that with my sporting career, getting back into sport, wanting to do other things, constantly getting asked questions about the past. And I found it easier to just embrace it and sometimes just let it go over my head rather than letting it stay in here. Because I found this organ, or is it a muscle? Organ?
Okay, you got me, organ.
It's an organ, is the most sophisticated organ in the world. It's what helps build computers. It's what helps build buildings. And if you stay stuck in here, then it becomes a maze. And I've learned to just stay out of my head sometimes with stuff. Not the easiest task, but I've learned if it's not there today, I sleep on it, incubate on it, and then when the instincts or the thought comes to me, then I act on it. But if it's not there, I just leave it.
That's a real maturity, right? Which a young Dwayne, a young John would have struggled with, right? Testosterone, passion, drive, sort of the whole buzz of competition.
Yeah.
You mentioned lots of people asking questions. Is there one kind of common denominator question that they're all asking you? Is there one thing that people want to ask you?
It's mainly about the doping past.
Yeah, but specifically, what are they actually asking? Because what I mean by that is it's all out in the open domain.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing you now. I'm having a conversation with you ultimately. But I haven't got one question about it that I want to know. If anything, my question would be, are you at peace with it? But what are they asking you?
Why did you do it? And are other people doing it? Is the one I get asked a lot.
Yeah, okay, so they were in my head as well.
You know, why are other people doing it? What makes certain athletes get away? Why did you get caught? And those are questions I answer openly, but I only ever answer questions relating to me. because I don't know what influences other people's decisions. I know what influenced me. And with that, I open and speak honestly because we all face a crossroad in our life. We all do. I chose to go left, meaning I wanted to take the short route to success. Because I found hard work or the long route too long and boring and tedious. But the short route was quick, it brought the fame, the success, the glory, the women, it brought it all. And I enjoyed it. But when that path came to an end, I was better off taking the long path, but I didn't know about the long path until what had happened to me had happened. And that just comes with age. And essentially, you don't learn anything until you fall. You learn more from losing than you do by winning. You know, and these are things I picked up through learning to read and talk and listen. And when I heard these phrases, I was like, that's right. But as a youngster, you don't want to wait.
What about the support around you? So you mentioned that crossroads, left and right. Sport now is very different. You know, we're still relatively young, I don't feel it anymore. But youngsters coming through in athletics, in any sport, have got a whole support network around them now, and the lived experience of others that you learn from. And you know, where was the support for you when you were making those decisions?
Well, going back to the point of young sportsmen and women have support around them. Yes, they have support around them, but they still ultimately have their own thoughts. The team around you are making decisions for you. That's the problem. The team around you are making decisions for you, when the athlete, male or female, are actually making decisions for themselves. And you tend to find when an athlete's got to the peak and they're up there and they feel, okay, I'm ready to do this, they're in uncharted territory, because now they're like, okay, their team's fallen away from them. Now I've got to make decisions, and it's not been a process they've had enough experience in. And that's when you tend to see a lot of athletes fall off and then things go wrong. So it has to be a process of nurturing the athlete and encouraging them to think for themselves. And unfortunately in sport, managers, agents, they don't want that, because the moment an athlete or sports person or anybody starts thinking for themselves, then they realize that the strength is with them and they no longer lead them.
So there's a control element.
100%. But that's part of something all people have to go through in order to realize, okay, I may need you for certain things, I may not, but ultimately the decision should fall down to you as an individual.
So the other question you mentioned was about other people doing it. So going back to a young Dwayne, when you took the path shortcut, how many other people were doing it? And in today's world, October 2024, is it still rife? Is it still a big issue?
So in terms of how many people were doing it at the time, I had no proof. I just listened to what other people were saying and chose to believe that's what they were doing. When really I could have been looking more at myself, at all the things I could have done to improve. Could I have been sleeping more hours? Could I have stopped raving at Eros nightclub? All these things. But I like that side of me. I also realised I had multiple personalities. I like the reckless Dwayne, I like the eating chocolate Dwayne, I like the training Dwayne. So I realised I was trying to manage all these personalities. And with that, if the rebellious Dwayne was dominant on that day, I was going to follow him and he was going to lead. So I chose to look externally at what other people were doing. I used that envy to fuel me. And one thing I've learned in life is the athlete envies the athlete. The employer envies the employer. The footballer envies the footballer.
Creates drive, doesn't it?
100%. And you've got to learn to use that in the right way. So if you're envious of another individual, why? Is it good envy or is it bad envy? And I had the bad envy. Why are they more successful? Why are they winning? Why am I not? And as a result of that, the Pandora's box of curiosity opened. And it left me exposed to so many people coming at me with things and offers. And my wanting was to go from number 5 in the world to number 1 in the world. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get back to number 1. And when presented with an opportunity to go from number 5 in the world to number 1 in the world, and it included doping, I was like, I know this is wrong, but winning is more important.
Consuming.
It was there. I had no proof that anybody else was doing it, but I felt that was the right decision for me.
When you ultimately got caught, exposed, how did you feel? Because in the moment of winning, you'd achieved the goal. You actually, you're now winning, you're now number 1. Did you, by sort of press articles and sort of comrades and so on, then making comments, did that then take away the whole thing? Or did you still have that whole, like, was there still a moment where you're like, well, I achieved the goal I set out to do, now I need to reevaluate my goals? And where did you go in your head? Because there was clearly a moment where you're removed from the sport, but you didn't stop training, keeping fit. I mean, look, you know, you're an absolute pillar of strength, right? So where did that whole thing keep going for you?
Well, ultimately, once I'd taken that first injection, I knew I was doing wrong. I was already done. And every time I competed or took part on the track, I knew I was breaking the rules. I knew every success that I had or all the amount of money that I earned was just done in the wrong fashion. I was smiling on the outside, but down on the in.
Cheating yourself?
Yeah, of course. And I knew it. And people who think that they don't feel these emotions are lying. When I put on a facade, they put on this joker face to everyone in front of them. But when they get home, which I experienced on several occasions, when I got home, I shut that door, I was like, what the hell am I doing?
But you carried on.
But I had to carry on. I didn't know how to stop. I wasn't exactly going to go to the drug testings and say, I'm taking drugs. I wasn't brave enough to do that.
That would have been brave. Yeah, that would have been brave.
It would have, but I didn't want to do that. Part of me enjoyed the success. But there was a huge part of me that thought, I'm going to get caught. I just knew I was going to get caught. So
you always felt that you were going to, at some point, the cards were going to come down.
It's inevitable.
And when that happened, what was that like? Because you could argue you'd already been preempting it.
Yeah. So I was already putting that in my little cinema picture.
Had you mentally prepared for it?
I mentally prepared. Well, there was no preparation for it. I just subconsciously wanted it to happen because that's the only way I was going to stop. Because I wasn't personally going to go into a room and say, this is what I'm taking. So as a result of that, once I got caught, yes, the embarrassment, the shame, the fame, all that had gone, but the nightmare was over.
Almost relief.
It was relief. It was more relief.
Was there anyone there to help you at that point? Were you feeling isolated and alone and shunned, or was there anyone that came to you and said, right, help you, or did you have to do that all from yourself?
I shut myself off from everyone. There was nobody at the time that could help me, and if there was, I didn't want it.
So so all you'd wanted to do is be the fastest in the world. And you got there by the way you chose to go. You're now isolated, alone, and you're not even able to compete because you've been kind of removed. What got you through that period?
For, I would say, at least the first 6 to 7 months, I never spent, even though I shut myself off from the external world, I still had my close friends around me. I couldn't stand to be alone. So I'd have my friends stay over with me. I had loads of women around me. I just didn't want to stay alone. So by them keeping my mind occupied with partying, staying up late, when I got to the point I was tired, I just went to sleep, and then I got up and it was a new day. Then I kept myself occupied with just tidying up the house, so I didn't have to think. And I think once the novelty of what I'd done wore off and all my friends kind of said, I've had enough of this, then I was left on my own. It was then at that point I realised what I'd done and the magnitude of the damage I'd caused, not just to myself, but to the sport. It was then that I thought, okay, I done this, how am I going to fix this? But I was conscious enough to ask that question, how am I going to fix this? It was then that I started to just go back to my habits. I got up every day. I just then began to get up every day and start to train. I would train at night when people didn't see me, but I got myself into a habit, and I thought, right, the only way, what got me here in the first place, pre-drugs, was I got up and I trained. So I had to start that motion again. And by doing that, then it got me into a habit of thinking clearly, what steps did I take to making that decision? This is me talking at a 23, 24-year-old.
I love this because there's muscle memory there, not just muscle memory, but
in here,
mental.
Yeah.
And we talked about this off camera. You are super fit now. You were super fit then. Did that massively help the way your brain worked? Because we now know more than you would have done as a 23-year-old, that by keeping physically fit, you are actually massively focused in the brain, right?
Well, yes, because of the length of time I had already been training, I'd built up a capacity to keep training when I'm feeling good and keep training when I'm feeling bad.
Habit forming.
It's habit. I kept training when it was raining. I trained when it snowed. I trained when I had no food in my fridge. I trained when my fridge was full. I just kept on going because I knew I'd been through that scenario so many times as a youngster that it just became habit. And even though the demons on the inside were like, yeah, you ain't gonna make it, you ain't gonna make it, I just kept on going. I just kept on going, kept on going. As time went along, I was able to then return back to sport. But then the real challenge is what faced me then.
I said, well, I wanted to bring that up because effectively it's a comeback.
Yeah.
So I want to know how you were welcomed back into the sport, because sitting here now in 2024, there's a lot more forgiveness in the world. And there's so much to learn from people's failures, mistakes, poor decision making. It's almost embraced now. And I actually think that's healthy. Is that how you felt when you came back? Or was there sort of, oh, it's Dwayne, and the whole identity and association, when actually you're coming back clean and lean and ready to go again? How was that for you?
The return back was challenging. I was already physically prepared to compete. I always feel that I've been engineered to do this. I've just put on this planet just to compete. However, I wasn't prepared or educated enough to handle adversity. I didn't know how to handle questions. I didn't know how to handle disappointments. And I didn't know how to handle boos. So with that, it became a new challenge for me to figure out, how am I going to handle this? And there had been no record of somebody coming back from such a large-scale doping offence, returning to the sport, still being number one, and handling it. So nobody could help me on that. There was nobody qualified to help me.
It's like an unfortunate precedent, where it's like there was no one that could catch you, which I don't want to jump around too much, but that's a key part of Dwayne right now, which is looking out for the youngsters coming through and actually being someone that will catch them, because you're just so full of empathy and lived experience to recognise that and actually give them an arm around them, but also an ear, someone to talk to.
Well, look, when I coach now, I'm being employed as a coach based on my past experiences. But the climate is far different now for these youngsters. They're more influenced by what's happening on social media. It's just a different climate.
Of course, that wasn't around when we were
wasn't around.
23, 24.
However, I'm being employed based on my past experiences. But what I can do in this current phase of life is spot those cracks in athletes' armour when they're starting to think, I'm going to go down that left road.
See the swaying, yeah.
I can see it.
And would that be because, for whatever reason, it might be an injury that they're coming back from? I suppose you use the analogy of the shortcut. If you're just on the long road and you know it's hard, but you think you're going to get there, is someone in that athletics world or the sport world more susceptible when something knocks them and then they think, I need to catch up? Or is it more of a mindset?
It's a combination of the two, because if the mind goes, then...
Decision making.
And I avoid telling athletes that if we go down this route, you're going to make it, because so many things can happen. We have athletes or people in life that give their life to their work, their education, their training. They put everything in. And then sometimes they don't get the result.
But if you've given it 100%, you can be satisfied with that to a point. Like, don't get me wrong, telling a young Dwayne that...
Possibly. If you give 100%, you still don't get the rewards. For me to say, so I keep going, how am I going to keep going when I've given everything? What more do I have? It's like being in a race. You've given everything and an athlete just cruises past you. That's when doubt comes in. What's making them better? Am I not as good as I thought, or I've been told I'm that great? So I'm always mindful of the words of encouragement I provide. This is the sport you're gonna give everything to, and it may not give you anything back.
You could argue that's with all sport, right? But yeah.
Life is like that. You know, you can be in a relationship and your partner die. It happens. Things happen. And you've got to be robust enough, or have somebody around you that makes you mindful of the fact that it's going to be good some days and it's going to be bad some days. But how do you pull yourself back up?
So someone watching or listening now who this really resonates with, or someone around them they know is aspiring to be number one in what they're doing, And you could actually relate that to
Yeah.
other things where there could be a shortcut, a cheat. What advice would you give to them if you spot that sign? So let's just say it's someone that is training, and someone just cruised past them this afternoon. They're evaluating their diet, and they're just starting to get despondent. And that's the crack. That's the crack in the armour. Is there a singular piece of advice that you would give someone?
Good question. There's no one bit of advice you could tell that person. It'll be a process of carrying that person's emotions with you. You've got to support them. They've now entered a new chapter of their life where they're like, oh my gosh, this has just happened to me. I've given everything. This is a new chapter. So how do you support that person through that chapter? It's not just one conversation you have on a Friday night after training and leave them. Because you've given them that glimmer of light and then they'll go home and they'll drop back into that dark place again. So how do you keep them constantly looking up?
And how do they keep themselves up? Because you can't necessarily be there for them all the time, right? And that's when they could make a poor decision.
Yeah. So I'm of the mindset where I'm thinking, like when I do talks, I don't want to be classed as a motivational speaker because I shouldn't have to be on stage talking to motivate you. Because I'll give you that element of, oh, I feel good. And then you'll go home and you'll be like, that wears off. It's the person you have to become to find the drive in yourself to get up. What are you waking up for every day? What are you getting up for every day?
Yeah, I love that. And actually, can I relate that to you? Because you are clearly ripped, physically fit. But you've also got a lovely, so self-aware, present. Like right now, there's nothing else going on other than this conversation. I can feel that from you. What are you doing and what works for you to keep physically fit and mentally fit? Because when you were training, you had a race to win. You had a championship. Now, you're training to just be fit for yourself. So how does that work?
This is the only way I can put this and answer that question. Many of you who are sports fans, you would hear Linford Christie always talk about tunnel vision. And it took me years to understand what he meant by tunnel vision. And I came to my own conclusion in it. So tunnel vision is your ability to just keep your eyes focused. But you keep your eyes that way, but along that channel of your vision, there are doors that are constantly opening.
Distractions,
and you've got to find a way to keep your eyes forward and not looking left and right. And that's where tunnel vision, my interpretation of it, comes from. So I keep my mind tunnel vision focused, knowing that I've got to make the decision that I'm going to come here today. How am I going to prepare myself to get ready for today's interview? What steps do I take from the moment I get up to get myself there? So I write all that stuff down on paper. However, as I'm going along my journey, if a curveball comes out, a door opens, how do I handle that? Do I get distracted and go through that door? And that's what happened to me in my early stage of my career. I had my focus and the door opened and I was too curious and I went through that door and then it all went left for me.
Down the rabbit hole.
There you go. And that's where I learned from that early age of 24, I thought, that's where I went wrong. But equally, my insecurities came from as a child. Not having the ability to speak at home, being physically and mentally abused for telling the truth and lying. So we didn't know where we stood. So I lacked the ability to say no to things. Let me think about it. Can you send me some information?
So making a decision quickly gives you fight or flight.
Yeah.
And no safe space. That's really sad to hear.
There was no safe space. And I tell my kids now, whenever somebody comes to you with something, can you email that to me? Can you let me think about it? We're too quick to say yes because we want to please. I was a pleaser.
So that's like a coping mechanism for you, a very mature one and based on lived experience where you recognise that you know what you need to do, not react in the moment, not open the door and
yeah.
And then that's a massive thing to pass on as well.
So this is the things I've had to learn over my years, but it was because of my downfall that prompted me to think differently about what I wanted to do. But how do you come to that position? Unfortunately, sometimes we have to fall in order to learn. And I can tell any of you in this room till I'm blue in the face, don't do that because this will happen. But until you felt the cut of emotion, the tears that have to come out of your eyes, the pain on other people's faces, I can't put that into feeling by just talking to you. You've got to feel that. You've got to feel it.
There's a lot of lessons in the failings, in the things that, the lessons you learn, right? Reframing that, having had a lot of success, and in my honest opinion and talking to you now, I'm feeling so humbled but also so impressed with just the way you articulate your own journey and sitting here now with that contentment, again, without any arrogance. I'd say that's success. And of course, you've got the accolades that have gone with being successful. Sitting here now, how do you define success?
Good question. I'm still on the path for that because maybe in the eyes of the public, success is all the medals that I've accumulated over the years. I don't know what success is or what it looks like outside of sport. So I'm on a different journey now. I'm just content with the fact that I'm able to be here. I'm alive. I get to talk. Hopefully our conversation takes somebody out of a hole. And if you want to interpret that as success, great. But I feel if me, Dwayne, now was talking to a younger Dwayne, what would I say to me then?
That was my next question.
Yeah. What would I say to me then? And would I listen?
Do you know what? I asked that question, and in the context of how this came up, it's so relevant and so perfect timing. But I often don't frame it with that because a young John Reynolds that made whatever mistakes I made at 19, 20, 21, I don't think I'd have listened. In the same way, and like we started this conversation, my kids don't listen to me. And I go home and I say, you don't know, I talk to the most incredible people who have been there and made that mistake and opened that door and went down, don't do it. And I can see, I'm not going to name my kids, they can see them looking at me going, are you done? They're going to open that door. They've got to do it for themselves. How frustrating.
It is, and I feel my wife and I have created an environment at home where, despite how frustrated we are when they come home and say, I've got another debt, I've had a fight, I've been suspended. Trust me, my kids go through all of that. And we've got to keep a calm interior and not show frustration visually.
Because then it keeps it safe.
Yeah, because then they won't come home and talk. And I think that's another issue I faced at home. Whenever we spoke about it, my parents were like, I ain't got time, I don't want to listen. So then you stay in your head and then you're like, okay, who do I talk to? And then you end up talking to your friends who are not qualified to advise you.
And in some people's cases, if they can't talk to their family and friends, they'll go to talk to people that are even further not qualified.
And then
which
they
could be
get
all the wrong
themselves
people.
involved in gangs and it all goes wrong.
God, this is powerful. It's powerful.
And also, for me, I just think I'm in a position now where I'm very fortunate, although it was costly to my career, it's put me in a position where I can now share this. Because I talk in a language that everyone's like, I've gone through that. I'm thinking that way.
No, you just, from the minute we started to, and I very conscious has become the main part of the conversation, but it's probably in the same way that you said, it's what people come up to talk to you about, but actually they'll learn so much from this conversation. They probably learn so much from the conversation they have with you, and you're so happy to be vulnerable, disarming, but with so much strength. It's a real, particularly in a man, and then particularly in a man as strong, and you've got a real presence about you, but actually you're quite happy to turn around and say, I know I did wrong.
Yeah.
But it's what you learn from it and how you come through it. And that, I mean, wow, your kids, I mean, they may not be showing it now, but they've got one hell of a role model,
just
right?
Like,
They've got one hell of a...
Stop talking, Dad. But I'm like, you'll learn one day.
Well, I have learned loads from talking to you. I was looking forward to this conversation and I would love to talk to you for a lot longer, but we have run out of time. But Dwayne,
half an hour already?
Yeah.
No way.
I know, I could keep going, but you have been inspirational to talk to, Dwayne. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.